So Apple and Google have kind of a tumultuous relationship. For a while, Google was in on everything in the iPhone, but then uh, Apple kind of made a switch away from Google in a lot of places, like Apple Maps. And Bing was actually the default search engine for Siri and iOS. Just the other day, Apple came out and they made a statement that they are going away from Bing, and now Google is going to be the default search provider. Apple says that switching to Google as the web search provider for Siri, search within iOS, and Spotlight on Mac will allow these services to have a consistent web search experience with the default in Safari. So Google was already the default search provider for Safari web browser, and so now all of Apple's services are on Google. This is a pretty big deal to Google and a pretty big blow to Microsoft, wouldn't you say, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, way back in the day, Google was everything on iOS, and then Apple wanted to kind of do its own thing with like maps and things like that. So they moved away from a bunch of those services. But to bring them back across the board in Spotlight and Safari is a pretty big deal. Plus, Microsoft and Bing haven't been doing that great, so it's not that surprising. But
yeah, I mean, search is like a huge deal for Google, obviously, and
yeah,
regardless of your feelings on the iPhone, a lot of people use the iPhone, and a lot of people are doing searches on the iPhone.
Yep, and obviously Apple just looked at what was going on and said, "Hey, we're just going to make Google or make everybody use Google again because we've already started using it again in Safari or in Siri or Spotlight, whatever one it started
Safari,
with.
yeah.
Safari. Let's just make it even across the board, provide a good experience across the board. Because it would be really weird if you're like searching in Spotlight or Siri and it brings up Bing results, but you go to Safari and you're using you go to Safari and you're using Google or vice versa or whatever. Like it's not really a fluid experience. So it's pretty smart for Apple to make everything more uniform across the board.
This is kind of a funny thing, but I actually use Bing search on my computer.
Do you?
Yeah.
Why?
I find that it's just as good as Google, and you can actually earn rewards for using Bing.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I've redeemed so many just $5 Amazon gift cards just by doing like the regular searches that I would do no matter what.
Wow, that's interesting.
So, I mean, like, I think people like to crap on Bing a lot just because, oh, it's Bing, funny. But it's really not that bad. Google is probably better, but, I don't think Bing is bad.
I haven't tried Bing in a couple of years. I just stick with Google for everything because that's just what I use.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are like that. And so I'm sure there are going to be a lot of iPhone users that are happy about this just because they probably use Google in their regular life everywhere else anyway. So now all of their stuff is going to be in Google on the iPhone too.
Yep.
So big news, good news for Google, bad news for Microsoft, and probably good news for Apple users too. This has been the Fancast, and we'll see y'all in the next episode. Later.
Take it.